Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations. I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Jeffrey NyQuil.
Did you invent NyQuil?
No, my great-grandfather did. And I would appreciate it if we wouldn't talk about it.
Oh, so you come from family money.
It's old money. You wouldn't get it. Basically the Buchanans.
Tom Buchanan?
Tom Buchanan, yeah.
Oh my God.
He was based on my grandfather. All right, so
F. Scott Fitzgerald saw Thaddeus NyQuil and was like,
Thaddeus, that's a good one.
it was like, you know what, this guy?
Did you do this on purpose, by the way? Do you want to match
No.
my shirt on purpose?
No.
Oh, I like that though. Good job.
This is the first cup I
No,
grabbed.
good job. I'm going to be bending down a lot, by the way. Those of you who are watching this, I have articles here that are highlighted on the floor.
I lost my bid anyway, so it's all good. Well, welcome back, everyone. Man, this is I don't know about you, man, but I feel a little apprehensive about this one, just because we just have a lot to talk about.
It's a lot. I think it just feels like a lot. I think once we get started, I don't think it will be a lot. But there is a lot that goes into this movie, and there's a lot that Jack and David Fincher put into this story, true or not. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Ray, what are we talking about today?
So today, Jeremy, sorry, I literally forgot the first name. I was like, I'm not going to call you Mr. NyQuil. So
It's fine. It's fine. Jeremy is fine.
Today we were talking about David Fincher's Mank. If you tuned in last week, we also said that we may touch on Citizen Kane, which
A little bit, not a lot, because that's its own episode later on down the line.
That for sure. After finally watching that for sure we would need to dedicate. It would have to be like when we did The Shining, either one massive long episode or a two-parter.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there would be so much to talk about.
And there's still fucking stuff we missed. I kick myself every time. We're going to have to do a part 2 for The Shining. Yeah, because there's stuff we missed, and I'm so mad at myself for the stuff we missed.
But anyway, so this film, as we were discussing off mic, would probably be considered a historical fiction. Because this follows, played by our main man, Gary Oldman. So it's our second Gary Oldman movie we've done this season. Herman Mankiewicz, who is the co-author of Citizen Kane, one of the greatest movies considered ever made.
Right. He also is uncredited in helping to write The Wizard of Oz as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because he makes a quip about that in the
Well, he keeps bringing it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Because towards the end of the movie, because when his brother visits him, his brother mentions Oz, and he's like, that fucking movie.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Because it was a bitch. I mean, listen, stop listening to us. Google the making of The Wizard of Oz, and it's a complete nightmare. I mean, they went through like 7 directors, a ton of writers, set disruptions. The woman, I'm blanking on her name, who played the witch, she caught on fire. There's a...
Of course, the actor who played the Tin Man was allergic to the makeup.
Right, and so, it's a nightmare. The whole thing was. So, that's why in the movie, Mank was like, that fucking movie, man. It's a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Even though it, in its own right, pioneered a whole new way of movie making as well, but we'll probably never... Would you want to do an episode of Wizard of Oz?
Probably not. Not anytime soon.
I think I've seen it twice in my life.
Really? Oh, I've seen it a bunch of times, but not anytime soon. I don't think I'd want to do an episode of Wizard of Oz.
So Jeremy,
Yes,
how do we begin this story of a very complicated man?
Well, we could put text up that says opening, interior, movie room.
Sidebar. I fucking loved that.
Yeah, it's great.
I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's so fucking cool.
It's cool, man. So we can just start with the story. So it's a story about Herman Mankiewicz writing Citizen Kane. So, and it's done in the narrative rhythm of Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Which is why I'm glad I watched Citizen Kane
Yeah.
first before I jumped into Mank.
Because in Citizen Kane, it's, hey, we discovered this about Charles Foster Kane. Flashback. Hey, we discovered this about Charles Foster Kane. Flashback.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here. But instead of, we're discovering things about, we are discovering things about Herman Mankiewicz, but it's more in, how did you come up with this in the script? Or what's your beef with Hearst? How do you know Marion Davies? How do you know what I mean? It's sort of like Slumdog Millionaire. Sorry to just jump to Slumdog Millionaire for some reason, but I love this this plot device of, how do you know that, right?
Yeah.
Or how did you come to this conclusion? How do you have these feelings towards this person? And then we flash back.
Yeah,
right?
and of course using Lily Collins as essentially the audience.
Yes, I got to tell a lot of people, hey, do you know who her dad is? It's a lot of fun. It's Phil Collins, by the way. Yeah.
Shout out to the Tarzan soundtrack.
Shout out to the Tarzan soundtrack.
I'm kidding. Obviously, shout out to Genesis.
Fuck you, Peter Gabriel. Anyway, so all right. So I do love this narrative rhythm of it,
Yeah.
and of course, his name is written down on one of these articles.
Oh my god!
It's the cinematographer who worked with David Fincher on Mindhunter. So those of you who are huge fans of Mindhunter, like I am,
actually, Mindhunter's the one about the FBI agents learning how to profile.
Yeah.
Serial. See, I always meant to get around to watching.
It's amazing. It's probably one of the greatest shows Netflix has ever done. That's right. I'm talking to you. Is it Cake?
That's on Netflix?
Show's amazing.
Oh, that's right, because it's isn't it Mikey Day who's the host?
Show's amazing. Anyway, so teaming up with the cinematographer and of course using David Fincher's normal style, which is high contrast, low lighting, in this black and white scape, and of course making it seem like Citizen Kane also.
Yeah.
Right? Citizen Kane has a similar photography. Also feeds into this story, but the story really isn't about Mankiewicz. It's about why Mankiewicz wrote Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't a biopic on Mankiewicz.
No, this is just plucking this man at a moment in his life that was truly a turning point, well, a career high for him.
Yeah, and a turning point for a lot of people in America. It was during the Depression too, and so the latter part of the film, especially when he wins the Oscar, spoilers.
Oh my god, I missed that one.
It takes place after the Depression, but
Yeah.
we're talking right after. The bulk of it is early to mid 30s. And okay, so sorry, we keep jumping around. I keep jumping around. So we open. Ben Mankiewicz has a broken leg. He's in a half body
You
cast.
mean Herman?
What did I say?
Ben.
Oh, Ben, sorry. Ben Mankiewicz is his grandson. We've been over this.
Shout out to Ben Mankiewicz.
Shout out to TCM. Herman
Has broken his
Mankiewicz
leg.
Has broken his leg. Is in a half body cast, and he has been tasked to write this script in 90 days, preferably 60.
Yes, as Orson Welles, young, hotshot, 24-year-old filmmaker, was like, we'll do it in 60.
Yeah, which is insane. To even do it in 90 days, I think would be hard.
Yeah.
Because basically started from scratch. I think he had a general idea, but it's like,
Yeah, he had to flush it out.
write the whole thing.
Yeah.
Basically. Or first draft.
And most screenwriters go through,
Some people take years.
yeah.
So, but, I mean, working on multiple projects isn't like one person's working on one thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Point
Point being, he's got very little time to pull this off, right? And of course, having a broken leg, which in reality, he wrote this after he had recovered from the car accident.
So, do you think they did this to...
So Fincher, or I guess Jack Fincher is David Fincher's father, who died in 2003 from cancer, but had this script, and Fincher decided, let's go ahead and make this thing.
It's kind of like a thing for his dad.
I guess so, yeah. And that story in and of itself is sort of the way Mankiewicz is getting revenge on Hearst. David Fincher is getting revenge on Hollywood, for doing his dad dirty.
Really?
Hang on. So Mankiewicz is suffering from, not only is he an alcoholic, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
But he's also super jaded. He's also sort of like grouchy. At Hollywood, at the Hollywood system, because as we will later find in flashbacks, he is discovering that Hollywood and movie making is run by the powerful and the influential, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and they like the things the way they are.
Yeah,
Especially during this time.
Yes, and okay, so there's a lot.
Like I said, that's why I felt a little apprehensive.
It's okay. Let's just, I don't know if we'll be able to go in order
Probably
for
not.
flashback by flashback, but here are some of my favorites.
Okay.
Those of you who are listening and watching this have seen the movie, I hope. It's on Netflix. So
it's not going anywhere.
It's not going
You don't
anywhere.
have to rent it.
For now.
You just gotta, pay Netflix, $30.
Right.
And then you could watch it.
Right.
Cool.
So I love the first time we see Mankiewicz. It's through the eyes of Marion Davies' nephew,
Charles
Lederer.
Yeah.
Right. And he is a very accomplished screenwriter himself. Google him. He's got a bunch that you'll recognize. A lot of these people do, by the way. So people who he just mentions in passing or meets in that room, they're all famous Hollywood people. So
Yeah.
Google them. I didn't have time to write them all down, but
And that seems like too much work for Future Rain to put up on the screen.
it's fun to just go, what was that name again? Google. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mank knew him?
and the fact that, Fincher, both Finchers, sort of just have them as background characters. We meet them once and sometimes never again.
And sometimes we see him again, but it's, again for just a brief little scene.
Right. It's, they're there to move the plot along and then they leave. Right.
Yeah.
But knowing who they are, like if you're a cinephile or if you just, know your old Hollywood, it's super fun to be like, I know who that is. So anyway, but him at MGM, right?
I thought it was Paramount.
Him at Paramount.
Yeah, I think he started at
started at Paramount, you're right.
And then he went to
MGM.
Yeah.
Right. So him at Paramount, I mean, it's like stepping into a time machine. It's wonderful. The music swells and it's like you're in a dream, right? Yeah. It's truly the magic of filmmaking, is being in this lot and going with Charles through all the rooms and to meet Mankiewicz, right? And then of course him being sort of coy about who his aunt is, which I liked. So I loved that. I loved when he gets to talk to Marion Davies for the first time on that film set, as he was rudely awoken from the film set. That William Randolph Hearst was
he's financing the
financing.
movie. Yeah, because that's when he runs back into Louis Mayer.
Louis B. Mayer, that's right.
One of the M's in MGM.
That's right. Metro Goldwyn Mayer. He's the last one.
Yeah.
So I know this is so hard. So
I'm telling you,
it's
bro.
because I watched this like fucking 2 days ago. Okay, so I love these scenes, right? I love Amanda Seyfried as Davies. I think that this is also a redemption for Marion Davies. This movie is, because if you think, because Davies is the inspiration for what's her face in Citizen Kane,
Susan.
Thank you. You're gonna be like, oh, Marion Davies, who fucking cares, right?
Right.
She was done dirty in that movie for sure. That is not an accurate representation of who Marion Davies was. And so this is also sort of a not quite revenge, but a sort of, hey, I'm sorry. But this is who Marion Davies was.
Yeah. What you mean, like the betrayal that Amanda does?
No. Well, the betrayal that Amanda does is redemption.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah. The Susan character.
Yeah, no. The Susan, yeah, which, is so funny that you go to that because, Mank repeatedly tells people once he finishes it, it's not about her.
Right.
That's not meant to be her.
Right.
Or at least as he tells Charles, it's meant to be the idea that people have of her.
Right.
And he's like, but it's not. Essentially, he's trying not to say I'm not insulting her.
Right.
But this is what people think of her. I agree. I think it was definitely meant as a big fuck you to William Randolph Hearst.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and of course, we get there over time, right? Because initially, when he meets Hearst, he charms Hearst. Hearst is intrigued by him. He likes him and invites him to his parties, right?
Yeah, they really hit it off.
Yeah. It's not until the election then he thinks something's really up, right? I mean, there are a few things like Mankiewicz is distrustworthy of these
Pretty
people.
Much everyone.
Right. Anyway, like this, but once the election kicks off, by the way, how fun was Bill Nye the Science Guy?
I will say I'm just a little disappointed he didn't have more screen time.
I know.
But as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, is that fucking Bill Nye? And then we get that profile shot of him. I was like, oh my God, that is fucking Bill Nye.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to David Fincher for getting the coolest dude ever to just do one scene for him.
Yeah.
Like, this is a side story, but like I was at a thing at MC that Bill Nye came to.
Oh, yeah. Heard about that.
And hearing my childhood science dude say fuck. Because he was telling some story and he was like, yeah, and I thought, fuck, if I just, and I was like, did Bill Nye just say fuck? But yeah, no, that was really cool. And I wish he had more screen time, but the movie wasn't really about Upton Sinclair. They just needed to introduce him so we could understand Mank's views on politics, essentially.
Yeah.
Which this isn't a sidebar. This is actually, it's so funny. Well, not funny. It's ironic, really, that in the 30s they were having these discussions about, Republicans and Democrats, and we're still having these exact same conversations.
Right? That's never going to go away.
It's so wild.
That's never going to go away, I think. But you're right. Especially when it gets to the actual election night and stuff like that, part's insane. And I think that Fincher does such a wonderful job in framing Mankiewicz and he's sort of losing it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love that scene. Okay. Quit. So
I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm talking to me, really. Okay. So, Rain.
Yes.
Before we go any further, before I get even more sidetracked, why this one?
So, I had really, you really told me about this, and I want to say I'd seen it like scrolling through Netflix one day, and you were like, "Dude, you got to see it."
Yeah.
And when I saw it was David Fincher, I was like, "Okay." And then I saw Gary Oldman on the cast list. I was like, "Well, I love me some Gary Oldman," but I still didn't know what the movie was about until I watched the first trailer and learned that it was about Citizen Kane. And of course, as everyone should, everyone has heard the name Citizen Kane. If you haven't seen it, like I knew of that title, and I knew that it had some place in Hollywood history, but I'd never gotten around to seeing it because before doing the podcast, as I admitted in our Sunset Boulevard episode, that was the only black and white movie I'd ever seen by that point. And black and white films didn't really interest me. Now, I'm 100% down to do it. Thank you, by the way. And so, when we were making our lists for this season, I was like, you know what? It's time.
For Mank.
It's time to see Mank. Put it on the list. And of course, you were technically the one who chose it. Yes, it was Yes, it was on my list, but technically you chose it.
Right, but you had to have a reason for putting it on the list. So,
you know? And also, of course, you know, I love the idea that you had of watching Citizen Kane, so we could talk about Citizen Kane with this movie.
Yeah. Well, mostly because of the narrative devices.
Yeah.
Right? They're the same.
Well, and also, you know, I told Mom that I was finally going to see Citizen Kane, and she almost died. She was like, you need to pay attention to it. You need to do this. And I'm like, you don't think I'm gonna not pay attention to it?
I'll tell you this. I was... maybe 14 when I saw Citizen Kane.
Uh-huh.
I was 14 or 15. And at first, I'd asked for Christmas. The book, the Blu-ray book,
Uh-huh.
the digibook, whatever. And I was like, you know, I heard this movie's really good.
Yeah.
And I want to see it. I was shocked by how much I liked it.
It's awesome.
I was so intrigued by it, and I loved the rhythm of it. I loved this investigation side of it, plus the flashbacks, plus what the fuck does Rosebud mean, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, for a movie to come out in 1941,
yeah,
to
dude.
have that effect on a 15-year-old in like 2007 or however old I was back then,
Well,
or however whatever year
you're
I was
almost
back then,
30.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be 2007.
is unbelievable. And you know, a lot of it does have to do with how it looks, right?
Yeah.
The direction of it is pretty flawless.
Yeah, man.
Coming from a 24-year-old who's never done it before,
Oh yeah.
rad.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. How well, and also, you know, the whole film itself, which, you know, the Mank opens with, is, you know, Orson Welles had unprecedented creative control.
Right.
You know, now when you hear about a film in today's standards of a director having creative control, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
how did they do that?
Right. And of course they have a filmography a mile long to finally get that. This guy had never done it before.
Yeah, he was coming off of theater.
Right. And what I loved about our sort of introduction to Orson Welles in this, which, by the way, I love how Fincher uses Orson Welles in this. Mm-hmm. Jack Fincher wrote him as just barely a side character. He's a cameo. Yeah. Right? He's not what you would think. You would think that you're like, okay, it's about Herman Mankiewicz. It's about the writing of Citizen Kane.
Orson Welles is probably going to be in it the whole time.
You're going to think Orson Welles is the bad guy because Orson Welles is going to keep bothering him and bugging him and taking control away from it. That doesn't happen in this.
Yeah. But Orson doesn't really become a bad guy until the very end of the movie.
Yeah. And I mean,
Kinda,
bad guy sort of in quotes. And
yeah.
It's Hearst. Hearst is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Mayer. Both of them are the antagonists, and it's not Orson at all. Orson's barely in it. And by the way, the actor, perfect.
He nailed it.
He's a perfect Orson Welles.
The cadence of his voice.
Oh, I know. The voice is just so spot on.
Facial wise, they did a good job to make him look very close to Orson, but it's his voice and his mannerisms. I was like, that's Orson Welles.
But what I love most is that Jack Fincher leaves in things like, oh, he's testing for Hearts of Darkness, which never got made, right? And we know this because Apocalypse Now got made, right? Apocalypse Now is based on Hearts of Darkness, which is a book on, I believe, World War II.
But then Coppola, no, not Coppola. Why did I say Coppola?
Coppola's Apocalypse Now, yeah. Francis Ford Coppola? Apocalypse Now?
I thought it was Kubrick.
Nope.
Really? I've had that wrong for so fucking long?
I guess Kubrick is Full Metal Jacket.
Okay, so it's all right. Well,
okay.
Anyway, but then Coppola, of course, setting it in Vietnam. And anyway,
It's just so funny that that Fincher adds that in there to, I guess, give us context to what year it is, but also, to be, I guess it's like a jab at Hollywood, be like, this didn't get made, right? Or something.
Well, and and it's funny, when I was telling Mom after I watched this Kane, we talked about it, and and she was telling me, which I didn't not necessarily agree with, but I was like, that doesn't sound right. She was telling me how that was Orson's highest film, and I was like, no, I think up until like the 60s from the They'll Love Me When I'm Dead documentary, that's when he started to kind of in terms of,
I think he still had flubs. I mean, this isn't the Citizen Kane show, but I guess it kind of is. I mean, I think maybe even by Touch of Evil, it was like he's losing respect.
Yeah.
By Touch of Evil.
Well, I mean, shout out to our History of the World Part 1 when you said that Orson was just going through a real bad time.
Yeah.
I still need to see his movie that I didn't realize that they finished and put on Netflix.
Yes. The Other Side of the Wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a bootleg copy of that.
Anyway,
right.
Okay.
Sorry.
So back to Mank. So Orson's barely in it, and we're just really following Mank and these experiences and what triggers, as they say in the movie, write what you know.
Right. Exactly. I like that. And one of the articles I read, it's down here, compared this movie to The Social Network.
Shout out
another
to The Social
Fincher.
Network.
Yeah. To where, I mean, there were a few comparisons. One of them was where Fincher sort of left out the political and social implications of Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He doesn't, it's almost like he picks up where he left off with this one, or saying, hey, I forgot this, I'm going to throw it in this one. Because in this one, they're using film to basically defraud people into voting for someone.
Yeah.
Putting fake news, if you want to use that moniker, or, just false information out there with Hearst funding these fake news reels.
These propaganda reels, essentially.
Right. Yeah. Which I thought was genius, because if you've seen Citizen Kane, you can see where that part in Mank's life, he goes, that's where I got that.
Yeah, because
right.
As we all know, which I hope we would all know, in the first 5 minutes, Citizen Kane then goes to a newsreel so perfectly edited into this film, and then it cuts back to guys in the newsroom being like, it doesn't really sum up his life. Like, so perfect.
I know. It's so good.
Yeah. Citizen Kane was dope. So was this movie. But anyway.
It has the pacing of a modern movie. It's amazing.
Yeah, and so... I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting them to really get into the politics of everything.
Yeah.
But it made sense.
It does make sense, because it makes sense to where it tarnishes the relationship not only with Mankiewicz and Hearst, but Mankiewicz and Mayer. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, and it always...
Louis B. Mayer's an asshole.
Well,
according to this movie.
And it already seemed like Mank had a very... What's the term I'm looking for? They didn't already have a good relationship,
That's true.
Like, it already seemed like Mank was like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments with Mayer, is probably everyone's favorite in this movie, is when Mank takes his brother to meet Mayer.
And he's like, I only watch films that make me cry. And how do I cry? Emotion. And where does my emotion come from? And I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he does the thing. But then, of course, he meets with everyone on the lot. Mm-hmm. That's the part that I really, really like. I don't know what it is about it. It's so manipulative and gross.
Yeah, it really is.
And of course, he's such a politician too, because one of the grips or something was like, is your salary going to be cut in half? He goes, guys, we're all here to help. He completely dodges the question.
Yeah.
And they never go back to it.
Yeah, no one's like, hey, wait, hey, wait.
No, you didn't answer the question. They just rally and agree. And
I love that we get an answer to what happened later on when Joe's like, well, he did give all the salaries back, but he didn't pay back the money he said that they were going to get back.
Right.
Which, I mean, proves that Mayer, he will do whatever he can to save money, to cut back, but not on himself.
By the way, in terms of Hollywood success, Joe is more successful, became more successful than Herman did.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny. The actor who plays Mayer, apparently this guy just always gets cast in really slimy roles because for all the Jurassic Park fans out there, he's in The Lost World. He's the guy who's trying to bring the dinosaurs from Isla Nublar to the main world.
I've seen that movie once.
He gets eaten at the end.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers for the second Jurassic Park movie.
Wait, don't you mean Jurassic Park 2? It's Jeff Goldblum's movie now?
I love Jeff Goldblum.
So do I.
Right.
This movie could have used Jeff Goldblum. No, I'm kidding. This movie was perfect.
This movie is... I love this movie, man. I think it's... it's more the I love showbiz movies.
Yeah.
Right? And, I mean, it's sort of lame, but I do love showbiz movies.
Well, I mean, because it gives us a peek into something that you and I love so much.
Right.
And it's, again, like I said, the film is almost like a historical fiction. We're seeing how they probably really made these, well, not probably, how they made these movies back then. Mm-hmm. The whole time I was watching Citizen Kane, I was like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Because, with technology now, we can do that effortlessly. But like the dissolves and, the shots, that are at everyone's, legs. I'm like, how did they do that?
I know.
It's
crazy. And, as everyone knows, I love Charles Chaplin. Sorry, forgot his name there. I almost said Charlie. I love Charlie Chaplin.
I was like, Charles
Chaplin?
Dance?
Charles Dance. That's right. No, I love Charlie Chaplin. And when, you see these things, you're like, how the fuck did he do that? And when they explain it to you, you're like,
I'm like,
it's miniatures and forced perspective and dual film packs on cameras so you can do two things at once. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of that, and it's
sidebar.
Yeah.
In terms of a technical, did Fincher film this on film?
No.
So he just made it look like it was on film because
yes,
I kept
the
seeing
cigarette burns.
Yeah, because
how much did you love the cigarette burns?
Shout out to our Fight Club episode. Learning what that was, and every time I kept seeing it, I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, no,
I love that.
He shot this thing digital. He loves digital filmmaking, and who's to blame him? Because it's so much easier to do what he does so effortlessly, or at least makes it look like it. Is melding in CGI that you don't know is CGI.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Fincher's use of CGI is unprecedented. Could you imagine if he directed a Marvel movie?
I mean, it would be the most grounded Marvel movie you've ever seen.
You wouldn't tell what was CGI and what wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I also loved, again, speaking of technicality, I loved all the shots in cars.
Yeah.
Where you could obviously tell it looks like they're on a screen. And I was like, that's so cool.
I know.
Because that's how they did it back then.
Yeah.
They cut the car in half and then it would look, or at least put it on a track, and the background would go by.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that so much.
Again, it's a love letter to old Hollywood, but again, it's also redemption for his dad. Well, we can get into that if you'd like.
Yeah, because that is interesting. Because when you told me last week that his dad wrote the script, I was like, dope. Because I think Fincher is not only obviously an accomplished director, but I think he's a fantastic writer as well. So yeah, what happened with that?
So
spill the tea.
So not only did his dad write this in 2003, couldn't get it made, whatever, or it wrote it before 2000. He died in 2003.
But he had a hard time getting it made.
Right. He wrote a script about Howard Hughes, and he he was in the process of getting it to Scorsese. Scorsese the studio went with another rival script, and that became The Aviator.
I was just about to say, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. So they fucked him for that. And then, of course, he couldn't get the other thing made. And then, it was just like Hollywood wasn't for Jack Fincher, right? Even though, as we can plainly see, he's extremely talented. Mank is very well written.
I'm assuming David didn't touch his dad's script.
No.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. I didn't read anything that said he did anything with it.
I mean, I would assume not, especially if David believed in the script, which I'm sure he did.
Of course. It's his dad.
Yeah, it's his dad. I couldn't see like, well, Dad, this scene right here.
I'm cutting all this. I'm cutting all the nude scenes.
Dad, I'm just going to read the whole thing. Okay. I'm going to pull a Matt Reeves a few years early, and I'm just going to read the whole thing. I couldn't see that. I could see him being very respectful. Like, hey, this is my dad's word. I could have seen him maybe altering some scenes, but nothing dramatically. But yeah, that's interesting, man. That is really, but it's so funny too. Like, it's almost like his dad couldn't make it in Hollywood, but David has. It's almost like David's like, it's all right, Dad. I got this.
Right. And so a great moment, and I'm going to read it. A great moment in this movie is when Mankiewicz meets William Randolph Hearst for the first time, reconnects with Marion Davies, and he's on the MGM set. Louis B. Mayer asks Irving Thalberg.
Thalberg.
Thank you. He asks who he is, and Thalberg says, he's just a writer.
Yeah.
Right. And it's almost in this article from the Hollywood Reporter, he says that, Fincher looks to correct that slight. He looks to prove that Mankiewicz is not just a writer, that, Mankiewicz is, number one, the smartest person in the room.
He truly is.
Right?
Even completely shit-faced, he's the smartest person in the room.
Right. And it's as if, hang on, I'm rereading this. I also read somewhere, and I have no idea which one of these it is. It might have been the one I threw away. Where I don't remember it in the movie, but they said that Mankiewicz was telling all of his friends, his writer friends, because he was a reporter first before he was a screenwriter.
Okay.
He said, guys, there is so much money to be made here, and your competition is idiots.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta come over. You know what I mean? Because this is easy. Right. Again, because like a lot of people in screenwriting back then, it's beneath them. Screenwriting wasn't like the goal.
Right.
Screenwriting was something you fell into.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, and don't laugh at me.
I might still.
It reminds me of the time Mom and I watched the movie Leatherheads with George Clooney.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I didn't see it. But.
And well, one of the parts in it is they're asking John Krasinski's character if, because his character is a college football player, if he would ever consider going pro, and they laugh at it. And I was like, well, why did they laugh? Like, pro is such a... But it's because in that time, going pro was unheard of. Like, no one went pro. Of course, now...
And now no one cared. And then no one cared because you didn't make that much money.
Now, going pro is like... And same with screenwriting. It's like, oh, you got a movie greenlit? Dude.
Yeah,
like,
whoa,
dude.
Right? Back then, no, not so much.
Yeah. Which kind of... I can see it.
Well, and, the scene that I love is when they're still at Paramount, they improv
a pitch. Yeah.
Which I loved because it's like they don't give a shit about anything, and I love that they get Charles in on it, and that's how you realize it's a bit that they're doing, is they throw him into it.
Yeah.
Just to see how he does, number one, to see if he fits in. And number two, it's just like we're having fun.
Well, the whole
None
time,
of this matters.
I'm gonna be real. The whole time I was like trying to figure out what movie they were pitching. I was like,
yeah, are they pitching a real movie I've seen?
I was like, have I seen this? Like, And then, of course, I thought they were pitching Frankenstein. I was like, wait, no, that's Universal.
That's Universal, and it wouldn't have happened yet.
Yeah. And I was like, and plus, they're at Paramount. Like, what are they pitching?
Right.
And then, it wasn't until Charles got involved I was like, oh, they don't have anything.
Yeah, no. And it's because they don't care.
Yeah.
Right? And this is beneath them, right? Which is an interesting concept. And I like that Fincher adds that in there.
Mm-hmm.
That, if you think Mankiewicz enjoyed it, you'd be wrong, I think. Maybe with Citizen Kane he did to an extent. But
well, especially in this movie, especially at the end, definitely enjoyed it.
And again, the system was so different back then because the studios owned you.
Yeah.
Just like with actors, they owned the writers too. So it's like I write for Paramount, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like saying I write for the New Yorker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
was less freelance.
As we're now, you can...
You write and then you pitch.
And then you sell.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, the Russos have made movies for Disney, but also Apple TV, And
sure.
Sorry, my mind just went right to the Russos.
Your mind did go to the Russos for some reason.
I don't know why. I guess because I was bringing up Marvel. I don't know. But so I do want to talk about, because I know we've been kind of all over the place with this episode.
I'm so sorry, guys.
We're sorry, everyone. But, it is just because this movie is so
This movie is also kind of all over the place just because of the back and forth, but that's no excuse.
Yeah, but this movie is so rich in its narrative. So I love the last 15 minutes when Mank is telling Orson that he wants full credit, or at least partial credit. And Orson's like, no, you agreed to, I'm assuming be anonymous or
uncredited. Yeah.
Uncredited. Because I'm assuming had it gone that way, it would have said directed by Orson Welles, written by Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Probably.
Written and directed by Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Or however they would have done it.
Yeah. But Mank's like, no, it's the best thing I've ever written. I want credit.
Yeah.
And of course he, as we learned at the end, he did get his credit.
Yeah.
And got an Oscar.
Yeah.
But I still didn't I didn't get the whole, I love that Fincher played the radio.
Yeah.
Of Orson and Rio. And he was like, tell Mank he can kiss my half.
Yeah.
Like, I don't... Is Orson just still kind of like upset about their little fight?
Yes. And I think it's because, and this, of course, I have no knowledge. I didn't do any research on this. I think that it's because he was given full autonomy. He was given full creative freedom. This was his, right?
And he thought he had Mank.
Right. And
right where he wanted him.
Dude, my name's all over this thing, right? It's just me. And he had to give some of that away. And it's like, shit. You know what I mean? I'm sure it was, the hubris of such a young filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
Being like, dude, I am the youngest filmmaker ever to get this opportunity to make a movie this way. And I am the sole beneficiary of all of this, right? And then, of course, when Mank demands half credit for just the writing part, it's no longer all Orson. And so Orson doesn't like that.
Yeah. And I liked the little fight, which is what inspired his meltdown in the end of Kane. It was his Kane, which I'm sure, as we're talking about, again, historical fiction, may have not actually happened that way. But I like to think that that's just very interesting that Orson got so mad that he broke Mank's little stash of alcohol. And he's like, you know what? It's a perfect scene for when Susan leaves Kane to end with a,
Well, and there's no way I'll get to pretty much any of it because it's been days. But the scene, the circus party that Mank goes to at Hearst's house,
where he crashes,
it's amazing. This is. I was trying to think about this because I have movies that I love. Mm-hmm. Okay, I have movies that I love for certain reasons. There are writer movies
Yep.
that I love. There are director movies that I love, and there are acting movies that I love. I'll watch a movie just to watch people act. Right. The Master is one of those. Even though the direction is remarkable and the writing is perfect, the acting
Well, it's Philly C.
is why I watch The Master. Right.
Philly C and Joaquin.
This one kind of has it all for me
I was
because
just about to say, does this have it all for
because in this scene in particular, this scene is just Oldman's for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no one. I mean, yeah, we're getting a lot of really good physical acting from Charles Dance and Amanda Seyfried and all the extras in the scene. But yeah, Gary is commanding the scene.
Yeah, of course. And, it's a powerful, climax of this movie.
Well, and it's our final clue as to why he wrote Citizen Kane the way he did.
Yeah.
And it's because he felt understandably insulted by someone he considered a friend,
Right.
in Hearst, and Hearst pretty much calling him an organ monkey. Well, and then of course Mayer calling him a court jester.
Right.
Which is so interesting that Joe brings up later on. He's like, someone had to say it, but it's like, you weren't there, Joe, so how did you know?
Yeah.
Unless Mayer just went around.
And of course he did.
Yeah, he probably did.
God, Mayor sucks.
Yeah. MGM, you okay. But Louis Mayer, you can go fuck yourself. He's probably dead. So
I was rereading some of this while you were talking. I wasn't listening.
it's okay.
No, I'm just kidding. But it talks a little bit about the fiction sort of heightening the reality.
Okay.
Right? And I really like this because they bring up The Social Network. This is the one that compares the two.
Because The Social Network wasn't 100% accurate either.
No. And of course, another Fincher, right? And in this case, Aaron Sorkin wrote it. And playing with the reality by adding in fiction or reworking real life events. Mm-hmm. It doesn't hurt really the story as a whole, because what you're doing is you're highlighting elements of these characters or elements of this scenario or of what happened, right? Mm-hmm. And in just highlighting those specific moments in time or highlighting a specific emotion or tone or character development, or right. And that's kind of what this movie's doing too, right? Where these events didn't happen exactly like this, and they're not even pretending it did, right?
Yeah.
No one's saying this is how it went down.
This is how it went down. Okay, look. Mank woke up at their house, hungover, and watched them make a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, no. That's probably not how it went down, right? It's sort of, Aaron Sorkin has done this before in a movie that is phenomenal, that everyone has to see. It's called Steve Jobs. You have to watch it.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to our boy Michael Fassbender. You may not look like Steve Jobs, but 100% he nailed.
Nothing in that movie happened the way it actually happened, okay? He didn't run into the same 5 people every time they launched a new product. That's unrealistic. No. But to understand the relationships between these real life people, putting them in these scenarios that is fictionalized helps you understand who they are and their character and how they relate to one another and the importance they hold within the story as a whole, right?
Yeah.
That's what Fincher are doing here, right?
Well, see, and it's so interesting that you're bringing this up, because that's the one thing that a lot of people criticize biopics of doing, is altering the truth, altering it to fit the narrative, one of the biggest complaints I heard about, for example, Bohemian Rhapsody, is the whole breakup, the inexplicable, the band broke up.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Queen never broke up in their career.
Happens in every movie, though.
Yeah, but it does happen in every movie. I'm trying to think of another band biopic that the band breaks up.
Rockstar. That's not a biopic. I'm sorry.
Rockstar.
No, I knew it
with
wasn't.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg. I was just kidding. I
was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, Rockstar. My dad loves that movie. That movie's rad.
But yeah, and look, I get it. When it comes to things like certain biopics, yeah, twisting the truth to fit the narrative sometimes is a little overplayed, but this, I agree. It doesn't mess the story up at all. The story is still fantastic.
Yeah.
Where you're still feeling, Mank's struggles, his anxieties, his everything that he feels. And you may not know what you're seeing is how it actually happened or not. And I think that's what makes it so good is, and I'm trying not to say, abstract things in history can get away with this, but, like Rocket Man, for instance, because that's another biopic my eyes just hit.
Oh, yeah.
They play really fast and loose with
Well,
Elton's,
of course, because they do it in the style of a musical.
Well, and also in that Elton's being an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
So we don't know where his life is actually at that moment.
Right.
But again,
Smart to play it that way, by the way.
True, 100%, especially during that part of Elton John's life when he was addicted to that, that cocaine.
Oh shit.
Yeah. But again, I agree. This movie, it doesn't hinder the story, it doesn't hinder what we're watching, and
right,
truthfully, it comes out way better in my opinion.
Right. To quote Steve Wozniak, none of it happened, but it's all true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, another example.
Shout out to the Woz.
I was listening to the Apple podcast, or I guess not Apple, it's everywhere, but the Chernobyl podcast for the HBO miniseries Chernobyl.
Right.
They have Craig Mazin, who created and wrote Chernobyl, but they also had another, I can't fucking remember his name.
Future Rain might put it
But
up for you.
he teaches writing, and he says that he tells his students, if you're writing something because that's what actually happened, it's the worst reason you can write something down. Or I think it's playwright. He teaches playwriting, and he's like, just because it happened in real life doesn't mean you have to write it down. It's not, that's not a good reason, because yes, it might have happened that way, but is it in this case for playwriting? Does it help the story? Does it move the story forward? Does it fit the story you're trying to tell and the narrative you're trying to tell? And I think that that's a good example for this and for Steve Jobs and for The Social Network. It's right. And for any biopic, by the way. So if you're out there, this might just be, a be easy on biopics episode, because there's a reason they don't do it that way, for better or for worse. I personally didn't like Bohemian Rhapsody, so that's just neither here nor there.
Well, it also didn't help that the director was off, doing some stuff that I'm not going to talk about on mic.
Banging boys.
And Dexter Fletcher, shout out to Rocket Man, Dexter Fletcher did that one, had to come in and fix a movie that he needed to get credit for.
Yeah.
But
Dad, really.
Anywaysels. But yeah, man,
we haven't even touched on poor Sarah.
I know. Okay. So why does he call her? Is it because
it's because everyone refers to her as poor Sarah? Because she has to deal with
because she has to deal with him. Yeah.
And which I love. It's a little, you don't hear anybody say it besides calling her that as a nickname. But you can infer that it has become her nickname because everyone goes, poor Sarah.
Well, and I love at the end, she's like, I don't want to hear anyone call me that ever again.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
You got it.
And, in real life history, Sarah stayed with him all the way up until his death. So she, and I loved that dynamic, because you can tell that she does care for him.
Yeah.
But it is hard. It's hard to watch him slowly drink himself to death. It's hard to watch him, lose more than winning.
Yeah.
Because in more ways than one, not only gambling, but also lose in terms of, what hill to die on, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you can tell she does still truly care for him and love him. And And I really like that dynamic, and it didn't make Sarah feel any less important than any other character.
No, I agree. I like the setup for, he goes, oh, and your wife Sarah, is she, he goes, who? Oh, you mean
poor Sarah.
Poor Sarah. As if, to tell him, like, listen, man, no one calls her Sarah around here.
Everyone calls her poor Sarah.
Yeah.
Or nothing.
Yeah. And it's also to highlight his sort of, I guess, self-image. Like, he also sees himself as hard to deal with.
Well, I mean, yeah, especially...
He's very aware of that.
Especially because he continually asks her, why do you love me?
Right, yeah.
Why do you stick with me?
Yeah.
Because I think he knows, and somewhere in his own mind, like, I'm so difficult. Like, why even love me if I'm this difficult? And it's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, on the flip side, again, as we've been saying, Mank is the smartest person in the room.
He is. This is a story about maybe one of the best screenwriters in especially early Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And most people have never heard of him. And I think that's probably, it's Jack Fincher probably seeing a lot of himself in this.
Yeah.
Seeing like a struggling writer who can't catch a break, who's finally, writing something that they're proud of. Mm-hmm. Right.
And as they say at the end,
that is my opinion. I have not, again, done any research.
Well, it would make sense, especially, with the story about how he got fucked over with, the Howard Hughes biopic, but it makes sense as, especially at the end when it says that Mank never did anything really after Citizen Kane.
Yeah, not really. I looked.
Citizen Kane was his first and only Oscar win, and and it is sad, but at the same time, he and Orson gave us a film that so many films now can thank because that movie exists. But
I agree.
Yeah. So Jeremy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah. Yeah, man, this movie is wonderful.
So, yeah.
I love it. I love everything about it. I love the cinematography. I love the writing. I love the directing. I love the acting. I love everything. The music is wonderful. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Trent Reznor and the other guy.
Shout out to Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah. And I'm so happy that I bought the bootleg so I can have it forever. Because nothing is safe. All right. You thought that just because Daredevil was a Netflix original, it gets to stay on there. Well, that's not true either. So
now it's on Disney Plus and it's unedited.
Nothing is safe, is what I'm saying. So
shout out to clipping.
Yeah, nothing is safe. Nice shout out to David Dick. Shout out to clipping. I'm really happy you chose this for your list.
Yeah, so am I, man. Because again, this kind of forced me to watch Citizen Kane, which before I even finished the movie, Ashley and I went to had lunch, and I told her, I was like, "You're gonna watch this with me. You will love it."
Yeah, this truly deserves all the praise. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that it's a cliche that they're like, "Oh, Citizen Kane's the best movie of all time," and you hear that all the time, especially if you're in our world of hobbying. You're engrossed in all of this film trivia and film history and whatnot. You hear all the time, Citizen Kane, it's the best movie ever made. Citizen Kane, it's the best movie ever made. And you know what? It's not far off. If it might not be your favorite of all time. It's for sure not my favorite of all time, but it's up there, and you can see why people say it.
And it definitely deserves respect, and it definitely deserves this companion piece of Mank to help us appreciate it even more.
I completely agree. It's a companion piece. I think Pauline Kael, who was mentioned in a lot of these articles, because she wrote an essay called Raising Kane. This is not based on Pauline Kael's essay, but it's worth looking into. Also, there's a made-for-TV HBO movie with Liev Schreiber, And it is this story. It is essentially Mankiewicz writing Citizen Kane, but it's a little bit more of a traditional biopic sort of a thing. It's not so much about Mankiewicz as it about just making Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
So that's also, I think it's something about RKO. It's in the title. Shit. It doesn't matter. Who cares? So check that out if you can. If you can Google from the, keywords I just said. And check that out too. It's in the box set that I have of the Blu-ray of Citizen Kane.
Oh, nice.
I also have the 4K Criterion, but I got the big one. It's pretty fucking cool. Okay, that's it. That was fun.
Well, so before you tell us what we're talking about next week, in case anyone who doesn't like the Facebook page or Facebook group, the podcast is now 3 years old. That was such a shock when I woke up that morning and I was looking at my memories and I had shared our very first episode 3 years ago. Granted, as of this recording,
3 years in a couple days.
3 years was a few days ago, but anyway. But yeah, so just real quick, just want to say thank you to everyone who's stuck around for 3 years through 7 seasons. I was explaining that to a customer today. Like, yeah, we've been doing it for 3 years. We're on our 7th season.
Yeah.
And she was like...
It's like Survivor. Survivor does a couple a year, so do we.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, just want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
So Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
So what are we talking about next week?
Well, 1 or 2.
Oh, fuck. Shit. So now I could really fuck us here.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna go... We're gonna go number 1.
Number 1. Okay. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, next week we are discussing Al Ashby's comedy drama Harold and Maude.
Ooh.
Yeah. Al Ashby also did The Last Detail and Being There. Being There is one of...
I was about to say,
Being
There is on my Criterion wish list.
It's amazing. I absolutely love Being There. I've never seen Harold and Maude, so we will check that out. It's about a suicidal kid befriends a elderly woman with a lust for life, and then they find solace in one another. So
Driving Miss Daisy.
It's Driving Miss Daisy. No, it's not Driving Miss Daisy. But Harold, I'm excited about Harold and Maude.
So am I. I mean, like, I don't remember whose Criterion in the Closet episode it was, but they brought up Being There and had nothing but wonderful things to say about it. And
so good.
And so I was like, all right, we'll add it to the list. And of course, it's also what's his name?
Peter Sellers.
Yes. Who, of course, if anyone out there, again, shout out to Stanley Kubrick, seeing Dr. Strangelove, Peter Sellers,
Pink Panther,
kills it.
Lolita.
Oh, that's right. He is.
Yeah.
He is Jacques Cousteau. Damn. I don't think.
Do you want to know what number 2 was, by the way?
Sure.
It was Woman Under the Influence.
No! I knew it was gonna fuck us because I've been waiting to crack open that John Cassavetes.
You said 1. You said 1. I know. I'm not gonna go back on it. But it was Woman Under the Influence was number 2.
Oh wow, it's all right. It's
all right. We'll get to Woman Under the Influence, guys. We'll get to it. Okay. But he picked number 1. That's Harold and Maude.
I know.
I picked that arbitrary rule, and I'm sticking with it.
It's fine. No, it's fine, man. We'll Cassavetes we'll get to.
I'll give you a fun fact before we go about Harold and Maude.
Okay.
Roger Ebert hates it.
Really? Well, what movies?
1.5 stars.
What movies doesn't he hate though? I know. Or hated? He's dead. I mean, R.I.P.
R.I.P. But yeah, I read because I was trying to choose, and I was up between those two, and I was like, oh, let's see what Ebert said about Harold and Maude. It's like, Jesus Christ, Jesus. Oh my God, he hates it.
Your computer screen turns red. But
it's like, oh God. Oh, Jesus. Oh God, he's so mad. From the grave.
All right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed this kind of cluster of an episode.
Terrible.
But again, there was no other way to talk about Mank without kind of going all over the place. We hope you enjoyed. Again, thank you for 3 years of listening. And we'll see you next week for Harold and Maude.